Welcome to Beyond Film School, where I teach you all about the film industry. I'm Amber, and in this video, we are talking all about the production secretary. Thank you so much for watching, and we are continuing the series about the production office. We're on to the production secretary, and with my on-set experience, I'm only on set, I'm assistant director, and with that ignorance, I had no idea what a production secretary even was, what they did, what their responsibilities were, and where they fell in the hierarchy of the production office. And just a quick review of the production office and what they do. They are the control tower of information. They are the nucleus of any production. Everything in the physical production phase starts and stops with the production office. And the production office also facilitates all the needs of all the departments. That office team is comprised of office PAs, production secretaries, assistant production coordinators, and the production coordinator. To start off, some productions might not even have this position at all. You'll usually see a production secretary on big budget TV shows and films. Their primary responsibility is going to be to manage the production document distribution.
The hell is that?
Fortunately for us, I had the pleasure of interviewing Sarah Himes. She is going to give us the scoop on the production secretary, what it's all about from her experience in that role. Sarah hails from Atlanta. I was able to work with her one summer while we were working on Jerry and Marge Go Large. We are going to cover the production secretary responsibilities, skills, and characteristics needed for that job, and also, of course, we're going to talk about that money. And before we jump into all that is the production secretary, just know that we tried to cover all the responsibilities, but yours could vary depending on who hires you and what show you work on.
I want to preface this by saying that a lot of what happens in the office is a lot of teamwork. And so a lot of it is also set by the tone of the coordinator and how the coordinator wants to kind of delegate things. So there's some things that, depending on where you work or who your coordinator is, that the secretary might do or the APC might do, or even the coordinator might do. And it just depends on kind of how they want their office ran. Most of the time, I would say that a huge responsibility that the secretary has is managing email distribution. So I've watched some of your other videos and I've seen other people talk about this, but the office really is the hub of of communication for the whole production. So every email that you ever get from production is most likely coming from your production secretary. So this is memos, this is call sheets, this is clearance reports, this is cast deal memos, this is Zoom links, like everything that you're getting from a mass email is coming through your production secretary. It's every single document is going to have a specific email distribution list, because you're not only compiling your on the ground crew, but you're including post, you're including the network, you're including the studio, any unions that want documents. So you're taking what every single person wants, because someone might say, oh, I want the prelim, but I don't want the prelim, but I want the final, or I just want this, I don't want that. And so you have to make specific email distribution lists for every single document that comes out. So it's incredibly important that you're organized and you're on top of it. And, also depending on your coordinator, they might want to look at these lists with you and go over them. And, something like a call sheet is relatively like, you want to make sure everybody gets that. But you're also going to be dealing with things that have confidential information, about your actors. Like, you're going to get information from casting, like a cast deal memo, and you're going to have to work with that document and, sometimes redact information for certain people and include, that actor's personal information that might just go to a really small group of people, like just the producers, So you really have to be on top of those things and be sensitive to that you're dealing with really confidential information and making sure that, you're not sending things to the wrong people. So I think the email distribution is kind of the crux of the secretary position, and making sure that you have your list organized, that you're making sure that you're sending things out in a timely manner, and that everything is going to the right people. And, I was talking about call sheets. That's a huge responsibility that you hold. So you're communicating with the AD department, making sure that you're getting the correct documents. But then when you get the prelims from the ADs, you're also going over the back of them, and you're making sure that, you're flagging the day players and anybody that's new, that's not on your standard crew, and you're having to reach out to those departments, making sure that you're getting, those day players or anybody that's an additional crew. If you have a second unit, you're making sure that you have all of those people's information so that they're able to get the call sheet. So once you get the prelim, there's a lot of work that starts to make sure that everything's set up for when the final goes out. Another thing that the production secretary really does is managing, I call these the documents, but these are things like the crew list is a big one, the cast list, and the vendor list. So the crew list, I'm sure if you've ever worked on a movie, you've gotten a crew list. I'm sure a couple iterations of them, but this is always a working document that you're really working with your UPM with constantly to update, correct, change. And then typically at the very end of the show, you're going to do a final one and you might put old crew members back on. I've had some producers or UPMs that want to make them super detailed and include like this person worked prep and block 1 and this person worked block 3 and block 4. Not everybody's like that, but you have to adapt to those personalities and kind of do the work if they want you to do that. So that's a lot of work that takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of edits that you have to go back and forth with and make sure that those things are handled. Cast list is always something that same sort of thing, but you're making a document that has all of the information about your cast members. And this is really important for your post team because once you're done and you're wrapped on principal photography, if your post team needs to reach out to cast members, they need to have that information because you're not working. So you're not going to be answering emails anymore. And then you'll make a vendor list. And this is a compilation of every single vendor that you've worked with on the show. And you have to make this based off of, makeup vendors, grip vendors, even things at the office like trash, shredding, internet. All of these things you take from all of the different departments and you compile it into one big list. And I think you're New York based, but in Georgia, a big reason why we have a lot of filming here is because we get the tax incentive. And so a huge part of the tax incentive is that you have to do business with Georgia businesses, and that's how you get your tax rebate. And so the vendor list goes to prove that, yes, we are doing businesses with vendors that have Georgia addresses, that are Georgia businesses, that have Georgia licenses. So that's a huge part for accounting to make sure that we're getting that money back. And so that's really important. So all of those documents are constantly being worked on, especially if you work on TV, because in TV, you're doing a cast list for every single episode. So on a movie, it's a little bit less, but on TV, it can be really demanding. You're having to constantly keep these documents alive and updated. So I would say those are like kind of the biggest responsibilities that you do as a secretary. But you also could be doing things like managing the Zoom links. We live in such a digital age now. You're always having to look at the prep schedule, make sure that the Zoom links are set up for meetings that are happening. You might be managing a lot of shipping things. And on any movie, you're having people coming in and out from different states, from New York, from California. So you're having to make sure that their kits are being sent out, especially at the end of the show. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it can be a headache. It just depends on the day. Sometimes you kind of act as the lead PA amongst the office PAs, making sure that if there's something that you are kind of overwhelmed with, that they can manage it for you. And just kind of how the office is functioning, making sure that they're doing what needs to be done. At the end of the night, you're making sure that sides are done and ready for the next day, along with making sure call sheets are printed for the set. So that's ready to go in the morning. I think also you're really the face of the office. I think 9 times out of 10, when somebody comes into the office, they're asking you to print something, to help them find something, or to ask you about some email that they did or didn't get. So you're really a customer service person as well, like trying to, greet people that come in and help them figure out if there's a way that you can manage that, or if you need to, escalate it to somebody else that might know more, or delegate it to a PA that can help handle it too. So I think that's kind of an underrated part of the job that not a lot of people think about. But I think being able to be that face and friendly and open to communicating with the crew and people that come in is really important.
The production secretary can be a very meticulous kind of job that requires a lot of organization, and we're going to talk about some of the other skills that it's going to take to be a successful production secretary.
I think that dealing with all of these things, sometimes you can be on a really time crunch. So you have to be somebody who's, works well under pressure if the situation calls for it. I think that you need to be really organized. If you're not organized, you're going to fail. You have to be really sensitive to kind of the situation that's around, you know. I'm like, you can't be pestering the ADs for the prelim if, you know, they have a mess going on in their own world. So you just have to be really sensitive to the atmosphere and know what's going on in the production and know what's going on in the office, what's going on with prep. Just being able to read the room, I think, is a huge
Yes.
skill to have. You have to be super detail oriented. You wouldn't believe the number of times that I've worked on a crew list or I've worked on something and somebody will be like, the spacing is wrong here, or the font size here looks weird. And you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know people cared about this, but
Right.
they do. So super detail oriented. You definitely need to be computer savvy or tech savvy. People always think that the office knows how to work the printers. I don't know how to work a printer more than anybody else, but I just try to figure it out. But a lot of work in the office is computer based. We're always on our computers doing email, and we spend a ton of time in Excel. All of those documents I was talking about, those are all built through Excel. You don't have to be an expert at Excel, but you have to just be computer literate and, you know, great at email. You have to be a great communicator. You can't be afraid to talk to people. I think when you're a secretary, you're constantly communicating with your second AD. You're talking to the best boys a lot in different positions, you know, the art coordinator, locations coordinator. You're talking to a lot of people. You can't be afraid to reach out to people. You can't be afraid to text people. I think you have to be good at communicating with your UPM, because a lot of things that you're doing, like memos, or if you're doing like a production meeting or a logistics meeting, you're making an attendees list. So making sure that those attendees are correct. You're getting a lot of approvals on things from either the ADs or your UPM. And so you being able to read that, like, oh, now is a good time to talk to them, or now is not a good time to talk to them. So being sensitive to those situations. And I think it works on your side if you're really friendly. I think that having a warm energy and being open to helping people is a really key personality factor to success. You certainly don't have to be. I think a lot of people that work in the office tend to be more reserved due to the nature of the work. But I think, you know, just smiling at people when they come in and having a great attitude about things and being willing to just tackle problems, because a lot of what comes to the office is problems that you can't always solve on set. So being able to quickly adapt to things and not be, you know, bogged down by a new task, but being willing to tackle it, I think is a great personality trait.
Now, let's talk about how much a production secretary is going to be paid. Let's talk about that money. Now, unfortunately, there is no union that is going to be covering that role. Production secretaries do not belong in any union as of right now.
When I was a secretary, I think like a normal rate, all in per week, $1,200 is kind of a standard weekly pre-tax rate. It might be higher now. That was my rate like in 2021, but it could be higher, it could be lower. It also just depends, movie, TV, big budget, low budget, but around there.
On average, a production secretary can make anywhere from $18 to $20 an hour, but also you will get overtime after 8 hours in most cases, in most states, I know most jobs. Their salary is just a tiny bit above an office PA, but because it's not covered by a union, you can negotiate upwards, and I definitely recommend you do so. The production secretary is not an easy role to fill, and it is a step on the ladder to becoming a production coordinator if that is your goal. But underneath this role, the production secretary, comes the office PAs, the foundation of the production office. And if you're looking to become an office PA to start climbing the ladder to become a production coordinator or even a UPM, a production manager for film, then you should definitely get the book Keys to the Production Office. This book is great. There's tons of details. It's written by Jennifer and Gilana. I've also interviewed them in this series, so check out the other videos, but this book is going to help you succeed a lot faster than on your own. It will tell you all the ins and outs that you need to know to be a really great office PA. That link will be below for you. It is an Amazon affiliate link at no extra cost to you. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you got value out of it, please like, subscribe, or share this video with someone that you think might learn something. And also be sure to check out the other videos in this series about the production office.